Blog article from Grace Daily. August 22, 2026. Title: When Hope Seems Foolish, a Courageous Testimony of Faith Against Reality. Written by Grace Daily. Summary: How true faith is not just believing in the unseen, but daring to live as if the unseen were real even when all the evidence says otherwise. Here is the full article. Faith is the basis of everything we hope for and the evidence of everything we do not see. Hebrews 11 verse 1. This verse is often quoted as a beautiful definition of faith, but have we ever asked, what does it mean to truly live by that definition? Not just admitting the truth, but making it the breath of everyday life, especially when our hopes look ridiculous in the eyes of the world? When hope becomes stupidity. Imagine a farmer in Bible times plowing a barren field while sowing seeds. Human logic says, this is in vain. The land is dry, the rain never comes. But faith says, I will sow as if rain had been promised. That is a picture of faith that holds hope, living as if God's promises were more real than the facts before our eyes. I remembered the testimony of a widow in our church, Mrs. Maria. After her husband died, she inherited mounting debts. The bank threatened to confiscate his house. Logic says, just sell the house, move into a rental, and save what's left. But Mother Mary said, God said, I will not leave you. I will endure as if His word had been fulfilled. He continued to work, prayed, and the most stupid by world standards, continued to tithe his meager income. Within 2 years, God opened a way through which a businessman paid off his debt. The house was not confiscated. Not because he is good at managing finances, but because he lives in the reality of God's promises first. Faith that turns impossible into it has happened. This is the paradox of faith. True hope does not wait for evidence, but creates evidence. When Jesus said to Martha, I am the resurrection and the life, John 11 verse 25, he did not wait for Lazarus to rise before saying this. He states the truth as a fact that has already happened, and then proves it. Faith is not simply believing that God can act, faith is acting as if God already acts. A. W. Tozer. I saw this principle at work in the life of a young man in our community, Daniel. He was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Doctors gave him a life expectancy of 6 months. But Daniel said, I will live as if I were healed. He did not refuse treatment, but he refused to live as a sick person. He continued to serve at church, taught Sunday school children, and even planned mission trips. 5 years later, Daniel is still alive, and not only alive, but fruitful. Not because he ignored the reality of his illness, but because he chose a greater reality, God's promise for his life. How can we live with this bold foolishness? 1. Rooted in the Word, not in feelings. Faith that holds hope begins with a declaration, not with a feeling. Every morning, Mother Mary said, the Lord is my help, I will not fear, Hebrews 13 verse 6, even when the bills pile up. He didn't wait for the feeling of security to come first, he spoke the truth until his feelings changed. 2. Act as if God's promises have already been fulfilled. Daniel did not wait for healing to come before serving, he ministers as if healing has already occurred. This is not a denial, but an affirmation of faith. When we give, serve, or love as if we have already received what was promised, we are building evidence for our faith. 3. Willing to be considered stupid. The world will always laugh at faith that holds hope. You believe God will provide? You'll see. But remember, every miracle in the Bible began with a seemingly stupid act. Moses raises his rod in the Red Sea, Exodus 14. David faced Goliath with a sling, 1 Samuel 17. The poor widow poured the last of her oil into a vessel, 2 Kings 4. True faith always seems silly until it's proven right. Expectations that change reality. Right now, perhaps you are facing a situation that makes your expectations look foolish. Piling up debts. A disease that won't heal. Broken relationship. Uncertain work. The world says, accept reality. But God's word says, hold fast to your hope, for he who promises is faithful, Hebrews 10 verse 23. A faith that holds hope is not about ignoring reality, but about creating a new reality, a reality in which God's promises are more real than statistics, more powerful than diagnoses, more certain than bills. That is the faith that changes history, the faith that dares to live as if God had kept his promise, before the evidence was visible. The question is not, do you believe God can act? But, do you dare live as if he has already acted even when everything says otherwise? This has been an article from Grace Daily. May it bless your faith journey.